My wife cheated on me with our neighbor, and now she's trying to steal my $500, $0 inheritance. I just found out she secretly transferred everything into her sister's name after months of lies. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to get blindsided like this, but here I am, sitting in my living room staring at a stack of bank statements and a hidden folder on my laptop that I shouldn't have found. Honestly, the biggest shock isn't just that my wife Emily was cheating on me, it's that she's been sneaking around with our neighbor Jason. I mean, I always suspected something was off, but I never imagined she'd actually do it, let alone be so brazen about it. The worst part. It all came crashing down in a matter of days, and I finally saw her for who she really is. It started about 3 months ago. Emily had been acting weird, distracted, secretive, always brushing me off when I asked about her day. She'd suddenly be tired, or say she was working late, even though her job's pretty straightforward. I noticed she was spending more time on her phone, hiding her screen when I'd walk into the room. Small things at first. I brushed it off. I told myself she was just stressed with work or maybe dealing with some personal stuff she didn't want to talk about. But then she started going out more often, claiming it was for girls' nights or happy hours with her coworkers. I didn't think much of it until I caught her texting late at night. One night, I was up late finishing some work on my laptop, and I saw her phone light up with a message from Jason. Just a casual, "Hey, you up?" Typical, right? But then I noticed the tone was a little more flirty than usual. I shrugged it off, told myself I was being paranoid. I mean, she was always a bit bitchy when I brought up her phone, accusing me of snooping, saying I didn't trust her. Classic move. But I knew something was wrong. Then came the real wake-up call. I was going through some of our shared cloud storage files because I wanted to look at the photos from our last vacation. That's when I found the folder labeled private that I'd never seen before. Inside, there were photos, screenshots of messages between Emily and Jason. I saw her laughing at his jokes, talking about how good sex with him was, how she loved the thrill of sneaking around. I saw her saying she wanted to leave me, start fresh somewhere else with him. My stomach dropped. I couldn't believe it. The woman I'd trusted with my life, who I'd built a future with, was cheating on me with our neighbor, and she was planning to leave me for him. The worst part, I found out she'd been lying about her whereabouts for months. She told me she was working late or visiting her sister, but all along, she was sneaking off to meet Jason. And here's the kicker, she's been trying to get her claws into my inheritance. I have a $500, $0 estate coming to me once my grandfather passes, and I had no idea she was scheming to steal it all. I found out she transferred all our joint accounts into her sister's name, claiming she was just helping out with legal stuff. Turns out she's been quietly draining our savings, planning to cut me out completely. I was furious. The betrayal hit me like a punch in the gut. I had worked so hard to build a life, a future I thought was secure. Now I was starring at her deception, feeling stupid for not noticing sooner. I knew I had to confront her, but I also knew I needed to be smart. I couldn't just blow up and accuse her without proof. I had to gather my evidence, plan my next move carefully. That's when I started to realize this wasn't just about cheating. It was about a full-blown attempt to take everything I had to destroy what little stability I had left. I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying everything I'd seen, every lie she'd told, every secret message. The anger boiled inside me, mixed with sadness. How could she do this? How could she betray me like this after everything? I thought about the years we'd spent together, the plans we made, the family we'd talked about. And now, it all felt like it was crumbling under her lies. I knew I couldn't let her get away with it, not without a fight. Not without showing her I wasn't some fool she could manipulate. I decided I'd get justice. I'd find out just how deep her plans went, and I'd make her regret ever crossing me. I didn't know exactly what I'd do yet. Revenge, legal action, whatever it took. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let her steal my inheritance, my future, or my dignity. Not without a battle. I'd been betrayed, humiliated, and shoved into a corner I didn't want to be in, but I was done playing nice. It was time to fight back. The moment I made the decision to confront her, I knew I had to be careful. Emily isn't the type to admit fault easily. She's always been bitchy, manipulative, and good at twisting things around. I needed concrete proof, something airtight if I was going to catch her in the act or at least expose her lies. I started digging deeper, going through her phone, her email, even her social media accounts. I wanted to see if I could find any more signs of her scheming or any other secrets she was hiding. What I found made my blood boil even more. She'd been secretly transferring money into her sister's bank account, an account I didn't even know she had access to. She told me she was just helping her sister out with some bills, but I saw the transfer receipts. It was a lot of money, more than I could have imagined, moving stealthily over the past few months. I also noticed her deleting messages and clearing her browser history like her life depended on it. This woman was good at covering her tracks, but I was starting to connect the dots. The biggest shock came when I realized she'd been planning to run away with Jason, not just cheat on me. The messages between them revealed her talking about leaving the city, starting fresh somewhere else, and taking my inheritance with her. She knew I was due to inherit a substantial amount of money, and she was determined to get her hands on it. She'd even convinced her sister to help her transfer everything into her name, so I wouldn't have a clue until it was too late. I couldn't believe how far she'd gone. She was prepared to lie, cheat, and steal her way into my life savings. I decided I had to confront her face to face. No more hiding, no more pretending I didn't know. I set up a meeting at our house, just the two of us. I wanted to catch her in her lies if she was stupid enough to try. When she came home that evening, she looked annoyed, like she knew I was onto her but was trying to act innocent. She threw on her usual bitchy attitude, telling me I was paranoid, that I was imagining things, that I didn't trust her. But I just looked at her calmly, knowing I had the evidence to back up everything I was about to say. The moment I told her I knew about her affair with Jason, her face twisted into this nasty sneer. She tried to deny it at first. "You're crazy," she snapped. "You're just jealous." But I pulled out the screenshots, the bank transfer receipts, the deleted messages. I laid it all out in front of her, and her mask of innocence shattered. She started yelling, calling me a paranoid psycho, saying I was ruining her life. But I wasn't about to let her spin this into some kind of victim story. I told her I knew she was planning to leave me, that she was trying to steal my inheritance, and that I had all the proof I needed. Her reaction was a mix of rage and desperation. She tried to argue that everything was just a misunderstanding, that I was overreacting, that she loved me and would never do anything to hurt me. But her words sounded hollow. I could see the guilt and the panic in her eyes. She kept insisting she was innocent, that she'd never cheat, never steal from me. But her lies only confirmed what I already knew, that she'd been lying about everything for months. She'd been playing me, manipulating me, and planning her escape with Jason and my money. That night, I felt a mixture of shock, anger, and heartbreak. I'd trusted her, loved her, and now I realized she'd been using me as a fool all along. The betrayal cut deep, knowing she'd been lying right to my face while secretly plotting her escape. I was furious at her for the lies, furious at myself for not seeing it. Sooner, and furious at the whole situation. I wanted to scream, to break something, to make her feel the pain she'd caused me. But I also knew I had to stay calm, to keep my head clear as I planned my next move. I sat alone that night, staring at the ceiling, trying to process everything. My mind kept circling back to the inheritance, the money I was supposed to get from my grandfather. I realized she'd been trying to drain that account, to transfer everything into her sister's name so I wouldn't have a say. That's when I decided I'd fight back, legally if I had to. I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything I'd worked for, not without a fight. I'd already started talking to a lawyer, gathering evidence, and making sure I'd be ready to take action if she tried to pull any more tricks. The emotional toll was heavy. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and angry. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity, like I'd woken up from a nightmare and finally saw the truth. I knew it was going to get worse before it got better, but I also knew I would be the fool in this story. I was done trusting her blindly. From now on, I'd be one step ahead. I had to protect what was mine, and I had to make her pay for what she'd done. Whether that meant ending the marriage or fighting her in court, I was prepared to do what it took. Because no one, not even my wife, was going to steal my future without consequences. The next few days were a whirlwind. After that confrontation, I felt like I was walking around in a fog. My mind kept replaying everything, her sneering face, the lies she told, the way she tried to twist everything around. I knew I had to act fast. I contacted a lawyer I found through a friend, someone who specialized in divorce and financial disputes. I gave her everything I had, the bank statements, the transfer receipts, the screenshots of her messages with Jason. I wanted to make sure I had a solid case because I knew Emily wasn't going to go down without a fight. Meanwhile, she kept trying to spin her story. She'd call me constantly, crying, begging, saying she loved me and that I was overreacting. She even accused me of spying on her, saying I was paranoid and jealous. She told me she was just trying to help her sister, that she had no idea about the transfers, that she'd never do anything to hurt me. It was all lies. I knew her well enough now to see through her act. She was desperate, trying to save her own skin, but I wasn't falling for it. One night, I decided to do a little digging on her sister, Sarah. I wanted to see if there was any way she was involved or if she was just an innocent pawn in Emily's game. I found out Sarah had a pretty sketchy background, lots of unpaid debts, some small criminal charges from years ago. It made sense now. Emily had probably convinced her sister to help transfer the money, maybe even threatened her if she didn't cooperate. I also discovered that Sarah had recently bought a new house, cash down, right after Emily started transferring money into her account. It all connected. The legal process moved quickly once I handed everything over. My lawyer advised me to file for a temporary restraining order to prevent Emily from transferring or hiding any more assets. I also started the process of freezing the accounts, and I made sure to get copies of all the financial documents I could. It was clear Emily was trying to pull a fast one, but I was determined to stop her. I wasn't just fighting for my money. I was fighting for my reputation and my dignity. I'd been played, lied to, and betrayed, but I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything. Meanwhile, Emily's behavior became more erratic. She started showing up at the house unannounced, crying, begging me to forgive her, saying she'd do anything to fix things. But I saw right through her tears. They weren't genuine. They were just her last-ditch effort to manipulate me. I told her to leave, that I wasn't going to be played anymore. I had evidence now, and I was ready to take this to court if I had to. I wasn't about to let her steal my inheritance or destroy what I'd built. One night she brought up her sister, Sarah, again, trying to convince me that Sarah was innocent and that Emily had no idea about the transfers. She claimed she was just trying to help her sister out of a jam. I looked at her coldly and told her I'd already done my homework. Sarah was involved and I had the proof. That's when she started to get angry, yelling at me, calling me paranoid, saying I was ruining her life. But I didn't care anymore. I was sick of her lies, sick of her bitchy attitude, and sick of her pretending to be the victim. I knew the truth now and I was going to use it. The emotional toll was brutal. Every day I felt a mix of rage, disappointment, and heartbreak. I'd loved her once, believed in us, but she'd thrown all that away for Jason and her greed. I kept asking myself how I could have been so blind, how someone I trusted so completely could turn out to be this manipulative, selfish person. But I also knew I had to stay strong. My focus was on protecting what was mine, my inheritance, my reputation, and my sanity. I wasn't going to let her take everything without a fight. The night I decided to confront her again, I felt a strange sense of calm mixed with determination. I told her she needed to leave, that I was done listening to her lies. I handed her a legal notice, warning her that I'd be taking her to court if she didn't cooperate. I wanted her out of my life, at least until everything was sorted. She looked at me with pure hatred in her eyes, but I didn't care. I was done being the victim. I was ready to fight for what was rightfully mine. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about respect, dignity, and finally taking back control of my life. The following days felt like an endless battle. Emily didn't just sit back and accept defeat. She doubled down on her manipulations and lies. She kept showing up at the house, crying and pleading, trying to tug at my heartstrings like she was some innocent victim. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I'd seen through her act. I knew her game now. She was desperate, cornered, and willing to do anything to save herself, even if that meant destroying me. Meanwhile, I was fully immersed in legal proceedings. My lawyer was working tirelessly, preparing all the documents and evidence I'd gathered. We filed for a court order to freeze her assets, and I also initiated a formal divorce petition. I knew I couldn't trust her anymore, and honestly, I didn't want to be around her. Every time she showed up, I'd feel this mix of anger and disappointment. How did I get here? How did I trust someone so manipulative? It's like I'd been living in a nightmare, unaware that my wife was secretly scheming behind my back. One afternoon, I decided to dig deeper into her relationship with Jason. I hired a private investigator just to confirm what I already suspected. The Pie followed Emily and Jason for a few days, and the reports confirmed everything I feared. They'd been meeting regularly, sometimes in secret hotels, other times just in her car. The worst part, I found out she'd been planning to leave town with him, to start fresh somewhere else, probably with my inheritance in her pocket. That was the final straw. She was trying to run away with my money, with her lover, and leave me with nothing. When I told her about the Pie's report, her face turned white. She tried to deny it, of course, but I had the evidence. Her lies crumbled faster than she could spin them. She started screaming, calling me paranoid, saying I was obsessed, that I was ruining her life. But I didn't care anymore. I told her she was done lying, done cheating, done trying to steal what's mine. I handed her the official legal notices and told her she needed to pack her things and leave. If she wanted to keep fighting, I was ready. I'd go all the way to protect what's mine. The emotional toll was becoming unbearable. It was a roller coaster: anger, heartbreak, disgust, and a deep sense of betrayal all rolled into one. I kept thinking about the woman I married, the woman I loved, and how she'd turned into this scheming, manipulative person. It was like I'd been living with a stranger, a wolf in sheep's clothing. I felt so stupid for trusting her, for believing in us. But now I knew the truth. She was just a user, a liar, a thief, and I was done being her victim. That night, I sat alone in my living room, staring at the legal papers and the evidence I'd collected. I realized I had to make a radical decision. I couldn't let her keep manipulating me or draining my resources. I decided to move forward with the divorce, push for full custody of any assets left, and fight to get my inheritance back. I knew it wouldn't be easy. She'd fight dirty, probably try to smear my name. But I was prepared. I'd come this far, and I wasn't about to let her get away with ruining everything I'd worked for. In many ways, I felt a strange sense of relief. For the first time in months, I was taking control of my life again. Betrayal stung like hell, but I knew I had to be strong. I'd learned a hard lesson: trust is fragile, and sometimes the people you love the most can turn out to be your worst enemies. I also realized I needed to focus on rebuilding myself, emotionally and financially. I'd lost a lot, but I wasn't going to let her take everything. This was the beginning of my fight to reclaim what's mine, and I was ready for whatever came next. The court date finally arrived after weeks of legal back and forth. I'd never been in a courtroom before, but I knew this was my chance to put everything on the table and finally put an end to her manipulations. Emily looked terrible. She was pale, her eyes darted around nervously, and she kept throwing desperate glances at her lawyer. I could see the fear in her eyes, but I also knew she was dangerous and would do anything to avoid losing her grip on my inheritance. I was determined to see this through, no matter what. As the judge called the case, I sat there, clutching my documents, feeling a strange mix of anger and relief. My lawyer presented all the evidence: the bank transfer receipts, the texts between Emily and Jason, the reports from the Pie confirming her secret meetings. I watched her face twist in frustration and panic as the evidence was laid out. She tried to deny everything, claiming she was innocent, that she was only trying to help her sister, that I was paranoid and jealous. But the judge wasn't buying her lies. The evidence was too damning. During the hearing, I also brought up the transfer of assets into her sister's name. I argued that it was an attempt to defraud me of my inheritance, and I requested a court order to reverse those transfers and freeze all remaining assets. Emily's lawyer argued that it was just a family matter, that there was no malicious intent, but I knew better. I had the proof that she'd been planning this for months, trying to pull a fast one on me. I felt a surge of satisfaction as the judge nodded, agreeing that the transfers seemed suspicious and ordering a full investigation. Throughout the proceedings, Emily's demeanor was increasingly frantic. She kept trying to interrupt, to sway the judge with tears and accusations, claiming I was trying to ruin her life. But the judge was firm, and I felt a sense of vindication. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about her blatant betrayal, her lies, and her attempt to steal everything I had. I had fought hard to gather the evidence, and now I was finally getting some justice. By the end of the hearing, the judge granted a temporary order to freeze her assets and appointed a forensic accountant to trace the transferred funds. I felt a small spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, I could get my inheritance back and stop her from running away with my money. Emily looked defeated, but I knew she was going down without a fight. She'd already shown her true colors, and I was prepared for whatever she threw at me next. That night I sat alone in my apartment, exhausted but relieved. I'd taken the first real step toward reclaiming my life. I knew there was still a long road ahead, court battles, her attempts to manipulate the system, maybe even her trying to run again, but I was ready. I'd learned a lot from this nightmare. Trust is fragile. People can hide monstrous lies behind a pretty face. And sometimes the only way to survive is to fight back with everything you've got. Looking back, I realize I've grown stronger from all this chaos. I've learned to be more cautious, more guarded. I've learned that sometimes the people closest to you can turn out to be your worst enemies. Most importantly, I've learned that I can stand up for myself, no matter how much it hurts or how hard the fight is. I don't know what's coming next, but I do know I won't let anyone take what's mine without a brutal fight. I've lost a lot, but I'm still standing, and that's what matters. The months that followed were like living through a storm I couldn't escape from. The court battles dragged on, with Emily doing everything she could to delay and complicate the proceedings. She hired high-powered lawyers, hired private investigators of her own, and kept trying to spin her lies. Every time I thought I had her cornered, she'd come back with some new scheme, some new lie to muddy the waters. It was exhausting, but I refused to back down. I'd come too far to let her win now. Eventually, the forensic accountant uncovered the full extent of her scheme. All the money she transferred into her sister's name, the cash she'd secretly stashed away, and even the assets she'd been trying to move out of the country. It was a mess of lies and deception, but the court saw through it. The judge ordered her to return all the stolen funds, and she was hit with a hefty fine for fraud. The court also ordered her to pay back the inheritance with interest and to give me full custody of the remaining assets I was entitled to. She was furious, screaming and crying in court, but the judge was unmoved. The final blow came when I got the official decree. I'd managed to recover most of what she tried to steal, and I was finally free from her grip. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. I'd survived her betrayal, her lies, her manipulations. I'd fought tooth and nail to protect what was mine, and I'd won. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of peace, though the scars of this ordeal would stay with me forever. In the aftermath, I took time to rebuild. I moved into a new place, started therapy to deal with the emotional fallout, and focused on my work. I also cut all ties with Emily. No contact, no explanations. She's still trying to reach out, but I don't want anything to do with her anymore. I've learned a lot from this experience about trust, deception, and the importance of protecting myself. I've also learned that sometimes the best revenge is simply moving on and reclaiming your life. Looking back, I realize I was naive to think that love and trust could conquer everything. Emily was never the person I thought she was. She was a manipulative, selfish woman who saw me as a target for her schemes. But I'm glad I caught her when I did. I'm glad I fought hard to get my inheritance back and to expose her lies. Now I can finally start fresh, knowing I've taken back control. To anyone reading this who might be going through something similar, trust your gut. Don't ignore the signs. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them. Protect your assets, your reputation, and your sanity, and never be afraid to fight for what's yours. Sometimes, the only way to win is to expose the truth and stand your ground. Because in the end, honesty and integrity are what truly matter, and I'll never let anyone steal that from me again.